Good morning. I'm Martin Collison, and what I'm going to do is just say a few words to really explain what the project is about and one or two quick thoughts about COVID and the type of impact that it's had on the sector. So Enabling has a range of partners right across the EU. What it's really focused on is trying to increase the incomes of farmers by exploiting some higher value types of uses of biomass. We've been working on a whole range of different things, including a whole range of best practices, really drawn from right across the EU, with lots of good examples coming through as to what businesses have been doing. We've also set up a trading platform to help to connect businesses, both those that wish to buy and sell, and also to provide some of the advice and the support. We also provide a range of coaching and a range of support really around the innovation type of agenda within businesses to really help both farmers and those within the supply chain to actually connect and to drive things forward. From a COVID point of view, I think things are very mixed indeed. What we've had just within the UK is that the UK backed away from some of the commitments that it made around things such as single-use plastics. But within the last week, DEFRA have come out and said that was just short term and that is all going to come back and we're really going to drive it forward. If you look in other parts of the world, we have seen some really good news actually coming out through the last 3 or 4 months with Starbucks and then in China with Alibaba, really saying that they want to drive this agenda forward. So it isn't all bad news. I think it is very mixed at the moment. What we've also had is a range of reports that have really looked at this sector and looked at what COVID means. And I think this one is really quite key because McKinsey, about 2 months ago, said that the sustainability agenda really has not gone away. What it has done is it has changed. And we now need to see it in the context of the sorts of concerns that the consumer now has. So health, hygiene, those types of issues. So if we look ahead, what does that mean? Well, I think what it does mean is that we're likely to see some consumer change. We're likely to see some real constraints on what the government can spend. And the real focus now is on jobs and growth, and of course, health. And what we must do is make sure that we show the way that really the bio-based sector can really address some of those issues and some of those concerns. Big business is also really focused on this at the moment. And there was a letter that went into Boris Johnson about a month ago that actually said that that as we rebuild, we really need to rebuild in a much more sustainable way, in a low carbon way, and that low carbon growth can actually help to lead us out of this crisis. But I just wanted to reflect on one thing before we move to our other speakers. And that is that 30 years ago, green issues had risen up the agenda very fast indeed. And that was at the end of a time when we'd done quite well, when people felt that they had more wealth, and really the question that was posed at that stage was whether that would last or whether the bubble would burst. And I think we're at that type of point again. Is the growth that we've seen in the green agenda and in sustainable development just a short-term fling, or is it actually something longer term? And I think that is really the critical question that we all need to face at the moment as we actually try and find a way forward. And so that brings us to our agenda. And to help us to answer that, we have 3 speakers who are each going to explain a range of things from their point of view, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So I'll hand over to Josie first, who is going to talk about Woolcool and the growth that they've been through and the way that they see the future. Josie.
Looking at community and the impact within the business and beyond, really. So just a very quick brief introduction to Woolcool. This story usually takes an hour or so, so I'll keep it succinct. So we were founded, actually, our founder started Woolcall. She invented Woolcall as a concept in 2000, and it wasn't until 2009 that we were officially born as a business. And for those of you who don't know what we do, we produce insulated packaging, but using sheep's wool as the insulator. So it's, I guess, what you'd call a sustainable alternative to something like polystyrene or EPS. Now, the concept really is for the shipment of food and pharmaceuticals within the post. So if you're sending meat, I'm sure anyone who's been on lockdown, quite a few people have probably had a delivery in the post of some form of food. And so, you know, hopefully you may have experienced Woolcall through that. So very much what, as a company, our ethos is around sustainability and the bioeconomy. We're using a natural material that is biodegradable, compostable, and also a material which is a replacement to plastic. Now, don't get me wrong, we do use some plastic within the protection of our product. It has a plastic liner on, but obviously it's a significant reduction in utilising plastic. There's also a few other areas, carbon footprint and such, which I won't go into because I don't have enough time. But yeah, so we're a family business. We're very much, our ethos is very much around team focus, which I'll come to a bit later, which is kind of helped us within the COVID period. We are a B Corp certified, so that ethos is around business being a force for good, and very much focusing on the 3 Ps, I think they call it, the people, the planet and the profit, which really is around not just looking at your bottom line, but making your decisions based on your people, taking into account social and your team and the impact on your team of your decisions, taking into account the impact on the planet, and also obviously profit, which, you know, isn't a dirty word. Companies have to make profit, but obviously making sure that you're not making the profit at the expense of all of those 2 other things. So as I say, we produce sustainable insulated packaging. Check out our website, woolcall.com, if you want to find out a bit more. And so this talk really is more of a overview to, as I say, our experiences of the impact COVID's had on us as a company, but also where I see from a sustainability point of view and a bioeconomy point of view, actually it's highlighted some benefits of being within that sector, that what's the word, category, let's say. So in terms of COVID, I think there's been multi-layers of impact, and one of the terms I hate at the moment is the new normal, because, you know, there wasn't really a normal before. Everything's always changing. So, but what we have seen is kind of an impact on our own customers. As a company, we've actually been very fortunate in that impact that COVID has actually driven growth and quite a high demand of our product, based on consumers changing their habits and ordering online. Now, for us, that's a great story from an environmental point of view, because it's meant that there's been quite a few companies that have chosen to use us, not only from a sustainability point of view, but because they've kind of had to find something to do the job they needed to do, which has then opened their eyes to the fact that we're not just a fluffy company that's doing something within the biosphere almost. Is actually, we're a company with a sustainable product, and we're actually a real company that are providing a real performing product. And I think that's something that has certainly, we've been, as I say, very humble and lucky, and I know there's been a lot of companies that haven't been in such a lucky position as we have. But what it has done is highlighted areas where we can improve. It's really allowed us to focus on things that, if we were to be doing the figures that we've done in the last couple of months for a sustained period in the future, it's highlighted the areas where on a team level, we need to improve. So whether that's through training, greater interaction with our team, from a sustainability point of view, so, you know, some of our waste streams, some of the feedback we're getting from our customers around, you know, what do they do with the wool cool, some of our stories around reusability, recyclability of our product. So it's certainly highlighted areas, and certainly within the business as well, areas where we can improve as a business, say production wise, you know, training, whether it's implementing new systems and things like that. So, and I think the other two areas that really, particularly, and I'll come to the sustainability element of this in a minute, but particularly from a future proofing and future planning, is actually, I think it, for me, has been almost a tester run for if we don't do something about the climate. You know, COVID wasn't caused necessarily by the climate crisis, but actually it's a good example of what can happen when there is something that means that businesses have to shut down or change what they do. What we have seen, which is actually really, really awesome to see, is the reaction of businesses to such a change. So whether it's restaurants looking at a different way to get their food out to their customers rather than the customers coming to them, or whether it's companies looking to do something completely different to what would be their norm in a normal world. But that allows the opportunity for companies to look at what they're currently doing, and taking the sustainability lens is actually adding a few, let's say, planning for the future and future-proofing actions in place to ensure that if we do have a scenario again like this, or where we do see something like climate crisis come through, and are impacting businesses to the extent that COVID has, that businesses are reacting to that and putting things in place to offset that. And so what we've seen actually from being a sustainable business and being within the community that we are, is actually there's been some benefits to it, and especially at this time. And I think one of the major things is keeping it local and looking after your team. And I think what we've seen is by being mainly a UK-based manufacturer, you know, that's actually defended us and actually support, you know, paying that little bit extra for having a UK or a more local sourced materials has actually given us, yes, okay, over the last 10 years, we may have spent a bit more than we would had we gone to China to get the wool, let's say. Actually, what it's allowed us to do is to be sustainable for the future, come what may. Actually, that's kind of made that decision. It's justified that decision. It's also allowed, you know, our ethos around our team has created a community within the company. And I think there's been a lot of support around the individuals within the company and the team and the way they've interacted. So it's allowed that kind of, our ethos has created, you know, and it's been a tough time for people sat at home on their own. And I think it's allowed, there's been a bit of a family, you know, as I think as we're a family business, so we've created a family community within the business. I think also, that there's a generation coming through that are looking for that consciousness in a business. And so I think it allows you to start attracting the talent. I'm just aware that I'm a little bit over, but I'm almost done. Attracting the talent to take your business forward. So you've got a sustained workforce coming through. I think the thing around the environmental consciousness really is that environmental and social responsibility is here to stay. And I think, as I say, COVID has been a dry run to what could happen if there's a drastic change in the climate. And I think the businesses that think about the environment, their environmental impact, and are doing things now for the future are the ones that have got legacy and will last for the future. And I think what COVID has done is accelerated the change of those businesses to start thinking, what else do we do and what else might be around the corner, and to put climate on an agenda, to go, well, this could happen, this is a possibility now, you know, anything can happen. And finally, I kind of rushed through that, so hopefully we have a bit of time to, if anyone's got any questions at the end. But I just wanted to talk through the benefits of making sure you've got a good team, especially in times like this, is actually we've bonded through the shared experience of the challenges that COVID has brought. And I think having the ethos of an open door policy, and where we do think about the team and put their welfare first, has really allowed the team to then engage back with us. So when they aren't in the office, or where they are working away from home, from the office at home, there's a trust there, and they don't need to be micromanaged. So they can go off and do their own thing, and everyone's kind of contributing. And I think what you also see is problem solving. Everyone wants to be involved. Everyone wants to solve the problem that's come up. Everyone wants to put suggestions in. And that's, you know, that's real engagement. And that comes from, you know, listening to the team, listening to what they're saying, and encouraging ideas. You know, I don't have all the ideas, I don't have all the answers, so, you know, the team needs to contribute. And I think finally, I think there is a duty of care to any business to look after their team from a mental health and an impact perspective, for their own well-being. And I think what having that ethos means, that if people do start going down the route where their mental health is struggling, they've got support, they've got help, and they quickly bounce back, and they've got the signposting to help them through that tough period. So that is a very, very difficult thing for me to do, just to keep things to 10 minutes. So I hope that's given you a kind of a whistle-stop tour of what we've experienced, and hopefully create some questions or some thoughts in your mind. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Just remind everybody that there is the ability to ask questions. We will take them at the end when we've had the rest of the presenters. There is a chat function within More where you should be able to ask some questions. There is also a Q&A as well. And so please feel free to use that. We're now going to move to Emma Greenwood from Cavimax, who's going to talk about some of what they've been seeing. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Emma Greenwood. I'm the R&D and circular bioeconomy strategist for Cavimax Hydrodynamic Cavitation technology and Pharmagy, which brings sustainable agriculture techniques and infrastructure and knowledge to the world. Right, let me just see how I can do my screen sharing like that. Can you get that? Okay, so I'm going to be speaking about hydrodynamic cavitation technology, which is one of the technologies in our toolbox for sustainable agriculture around the world. So what it does is it enables us to extract maximum value from a wide variety of biomass. So how do we angle this in the post-COVID or the, well, we're still in the COVID times as well. What we've found is that localized production of bio-based materials is where it's at. Long-winded supply chains, not only do they move germs and disease and bacteria around the world, when there is a global shutdown, they become extremely fractured. So what we need to value is, and build into our ongoing and future economies, is hyperlocal. And we need to support fractal economies, which is a small economy, which is a part of a larger economy, which then mirrors the global economy as well. And also, in order to entice people to be working in the agricultural sector, which is seen as a low-paid, low-value work, which people drain off to go to the cities, is you need to provide well-paid engineering jobs. So by providing bioeconomy, scientific, engineering, good quality jobs within the agricultural sector, we're going to be able to keep communities together. So this is how the bioeconomy can provide these solutions. So local, micro-resilient, rural communities. So monoculture, which is with the large-scale agriculturalists, doesn't really foster biodiversity. We need to really build resilience into not just our human systems, but also at the micro level and the micro nano level with our bacteria and holistic systems. So what we've got, what we can offer is an agnostic technologies, which meaning it will take any biomass and any feedstock, so it's non-niche. So by using our hydrodynamic cavitation technology in the field at the point of harvest for extraction, we can create access to hub biorefineries, which will then support small to medium scale agriculture, which by definition is low carbon, with low mechanization, and even with hand tools. So it's providing access to higher value end products, but to the farmer in a variety of countries. Lalisa is going to be talking in her next speech about integrated information of how the bioeconomy mechanism will signal which feedstocks need to be grown at any one time. So I'll not go on too much about that. But with the new emerging technologies, we've got reporting and feedback mechanisms for which feedstocks and biomass needs to be grown, for which bioresource, and this can also collect soil health and soil management data as well. Okay, so what we're talking about here, just to really narrow it down, is hydrodynamic cavitation technology. I've somehow missed out my slide, which actually gives a picture of what it does. So we have a spinning rotor reactor in a stator, which by its spinning creates a very high powerful cavitation and shear ripping apart of material function. The cavitation is high and low pressure, and it produces, I won't tell you exactly how it works, but what it produces is a bubble cloud within a chamber this big of millions of micro bubbles every millisecond, microjetting its energy into not the metal, which it can wear away metal and rock, but into a biomass flowing through this spinning rotor stator, which means with the material flowing through the chamber, it's going to get processed thousands of times just through a one pass through our reactor. But the good thing about it, and where it produces the lower energy, is that that bubble collapse is an incidental side benefit of this geometry of the rotor and the stator moving. It's actually something that you try to engineer out of a system because it's so corrosive. It will wear away a propeller on a ship, pumps, any valves. Any plumber knows that you don't want to have cavitation because it's so damaging. So what we do is we control and point that damaging effect into a biomass. So we can homogenize materials, force liquids and solids together, air and liquids, all sorts of clever things. This is not new technology. This is tried and tested technology, readiness level 9, 10, out the door, ready to go. So we've got this one machine, this one reactor. It will serve many functions. As I said, it's biomass agnostic. You can use it for a variety of biomass. The good thing about it is it enables wet processing of biomass. If you know anything about the algae industry, one of the difficult things about achieving an energy balance so that you could be competitive against things like fossil fuels, fossil derived energy, is achieving the energy balance. So the old way of doing things was you would grow the algae, collect the algae, dry it, then perform an extraction, then do something. Each of those has a large energy requirement. So what we can enable is wet processing. So we cut out a few of those really, really draining processes to enable a good energy balance. So our cavitation technology can be at the heart of many different processes. All we need to do is change a few things on the upstream and on the downstream, and you've got access to bioplastics, biorefining, biofuels. That's probably on my next slide. Oh no, here we go. Here's a here is a picture of our chamber. Let's see. Oh my God, we are actually going to have an animation that works as well. So what happens is our material will go in. That's the dry material. We mix it with some liquid. We'll go into the chamber. It spins around and it comes out as a slurry, let's call it, which could be a mixture of water and biomass, or oils and biomass, or extraction fluids, ethanols, solvents, and biomass. Okay, so our process intensification technology, which means smaller, faster, time for reactions is sped up from days down to hours, down to minutes and seconds. It's on a smaller footprint. It can be mobile or trailer-based technology. We've got the ability to break down high lignocellulosic materials, which are recalcitrant, which are difficult. So we can increase the availability of extraction of the cellular juices, which means a more exhausted biomatrices when you're performing a bioextraction. Our technology drastically reduces particle sizes of treated substances, so bioavailability or bacteria that want to eat it. This will come on to the next slide as to which of the industries that we use it in. We can position the reactor in multiple treatment positionings. We can do feedstock pre-treatment. We can process food mid-treatment, but we can also, at the end of a process, clean up waste streams as well, either wastewaters or biocascade, and extract maximum value out of organic waste feedstocks. So we can use multiple machines. There you go, there's my timer. We have a range of sizes for various plant and flow rates and batch processing. So these are the industries that we're currently working in applications: bioresource upscaling, biogas, we're breaking down recalcitrant materials and getting extra biogas out. Brewing ethanol, increasing alcohol yields out of a mash, high yield extraction. So if you've got a high value feedstock, we can get much more bang for your buck. Bio-oil and biofuels, so this is creation of biocrudes and refining of oils, which will hopefully bring a few people over from the oil industry that have got this knowledge of these techniques of refining oils, and be able to do a transition from the fossil to the bio-oil economy. Biodiesel, we can speed up the rates of transesterification. We're increasing bioavailability of animal feeds, and we've accidentally found a 91% reduction in antibiotics in our pig feed trial that we've had going for the last year. Food processing, as I said, we can have it mid-process. We can mix things very quickly. I haven't put on here green green chemical production, but we can also clean up water courses as well. So hydrodynamic cavitation, versatile, adaptable, non-niche, multiple industrial sectors, same core machine at the heart of everything. We can do fully containerized plug and play systems, or if we want, we can integrate into an already existing factory system. So there's no need to throw away a whole entire factory and process line. It's a disruptive upgrade, or you can go and have a completely new way of doing things. So in order to get people into the Cavimax way of thinking, we need to de-risk R&D. So we do this by taking small steps. We have our lab scale cavitator. I am one of the cavitation operators. So I have a very, very intrinsic understanding of this technology. I'm not just talking about it from a presentation. I live, breathe cavitation. So we can, if you wanted to do a preliminary investigation, we can send us some samples, we can cavitate it. Celignis are our go-to team for investigation, for telling you what's the commercial application of what it is that you're looking at, what's happened. Sometimes, one thing that we know as cavitation is you never get what you're going to expect. So expect the unexpected. Celignis is there to tell us what has happened when we've cavitated something. So once we have proved a concept, we can hire a Cavilab for a longer period of trial, or you could buy a Cavilab. Once we have proven a process, then we have a whole range of reactors from all the way up to be able to process 80 tons per hour of biomass within a flowing medium, down to about 8 tons per hour. So what have we got next?
Okay, Emma, I think we've probably got to move on in a minute to Lalitha, time-wise.
Other stuff that's happening. Right, my summary was access to all, parity for gender and country, training within the community, and being able to help smaller and smaller organisations. There you go.
Thank you very much. So we're now going to hand over to Lalitha, who you've already referred to, who is part of the enabling team and from the Celignis business. Lalitha.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Lalitha. I am Chief Innovation Officer at Celignis. Celignis, we are part of Enabling Project, which is Europe Horizon 2020 project. And as you all know, under this Horizon 2020 umbrella, there is a large amount of bioeconomy work that's happening, and it has a very two-pronged approach. One is to accelerate global bioeconomy, but also to support rural economy, support decentralized facilities. So in this COVID crisis, just like Woolcool or, Cavimax, Celignis being in sustainable development and sustainable bioeconomy business, we've been very fortunate to be able to run our business without any shutdown and serious crisis. This clearly states that how big the sustainability approach and the local economy approach serves, not necessarily always during general times, but especially in the crisis times. So I can't emphasize more about it. I'll go through the presentation and I'll go into much detail. So so the topic is how the bioeconomy can provide solutions. So as the word says bioeconomy is a lot coming from biomass and the resources around you. So we have to know what are those resources and what technologies we should use to make most out of it, and what are the markets available to us to build this robust local economies. So before going to a lot of technology and science details, I just want to quickly show you what COVID did to the worker sector. I know there is a lot of other socioeconomic impacts, but the biggest hit was employment. And a lot of countries, especially developing countries, have worked a lot to bring their employment up. And now all of a sudden, this created a huge crisis that most of the countries will not be able to recover in the next 20 years. And I think we should, and when we look at the different sectors that got affected, you can clearly say the low risk sectors are agriculture, health and education, and the high risk is in retail and manufacturing. And right there you can see where there is a very globalized economy and supply chain model, and where there is local rural economy supply chain. So most of the time when we look at agriculture, health and education, it is a very local resource that's available to everyone, and you can make use of it by producing products that you can actually sell locally. It doesn't mean that those products cannot go global, but you have immediate market. So I'm going to my next slide. Look at that number, 3.9 trillion euros. I think it's more than any investment that happened in the bioeconomy sector as such in Europe. It's really a lot. And that's through different schemes and employment support, state aid rules, and so on. And in this, there is no, the number that went for, you know, health sector, that is to for the you know, the health system that went through trouble now, that's still not here. So it shows what kind of economic impact we are watching with this pandemic situation, right? So now what can we do? One thing, how will we recover from this kind of impact, and how can we prevent future disasters? I mean, I read a lot of articles, and the articles coming up, especially in bioscience these days, are great. And two of my favorite quotes are, the first one is by Grob. So what he says is, biologists must use the focus to actually help policymakers that science is really key, and that should help in responsible public policy, not to get some, you know, votes. And it should have a long-term approach, like mitigate future public health, environment, and economic disasters. And the second quote by Josna L. Ponde speaks about strengthening the bioeconomy. And now one might think, what bioeconomy has to do with COVID? And as much as we want to argue and debate, no, it's not a man-made disaster. It's not because of the climate change. It's not necessarily because of a behavior, but it is. And we have to accept it. If you do not accept it now, it'll be too late. So, so going to the next slide, and recently there is this article on investing in nature, and I really love this article. I think that it is really important to invest in nature, to invest in people around you, to respect it. And it doesn't mean that you have to follow a belief or a system, but doing the way we can. And bioeconomy plays an extremely important role here. If you look at that, the big circle over there, so you can see how society, that is here, and the bioeconomy, which is on the top, are so interlinked to each other, and that can create a very nice, you know, it looks complicated, but the very, very, you know, what to say, a bubble-like circular bioeconomy, but a big bubble that can protect from a variety of disasters, mostly man-made or sometimes environmental as well, right? So the 10 points what's mentioned there is aim at sustainable well-being. I think that's key, the top point. Invest in nature and biodiversity, and ensure an equal distribution of prosperity. This happens only when there is this decentralized system, when there is a rural economy. This equal distribution of prosperity can never happen when there are centralized systems, and which is currently with all kinds of petroleum refineries heavily centralized, right? So rethink holistically land, food, and health systems. This is very important. Intensive farming and that should be avoided, and transform industrial sector. So there are 10 key points, right? I want to emphasize on top 5. How do we strengthen this bioeconomy? So bioeconomy as such, it can be linear, but the circular bioeconomy is the best approach. So if you look at 3 circles here, so once you get your biomass, you can produce different products. That's the pink circle. And then the dark circle, that is, you can take the waste from your bioprocessing or thermal processing to produce biogas. And then the third, and the digester, or the waste produced from there, can go for soil improvement and further biomass production. So a very nice and great and simple approach. But from idea to reality, it will take some time and effort, and quite a lot of investment. That's a fact. And there is a huge valley of technological death, but also the financial death. So that has to be avoided. And how do we avoid or de-risk this is by following. So this is by RDI 2 Club project, which is also under European Union projects, where they clearly mention about outputs, increased capacity and results, created change. But if you look at the K, capacity for innovation is higher value bioeconomy products and related services that will help to build smart, sustainable, and inclusive bioeconomy. We cannot forget the smart, sustainable, and inclusive bioeconomy. Right. So now how do we de-risk? We have to know about our feedstock really well. There is a whole variety of feedstock there. So you want almost everyone, because we are so we should get very close to our biomass. We should become a little biomass detective, we call here at Celignis, and we have to see what is in there in our biomass and see what products we can make. I just gave a list of 11 products that's from Wageningen University, but it can be hundreds of products that can be made. But now there's a big confusion. Yeah, hundreds of biomass and then hundreds of products. What should I do? How will I go from biomass to product? The first thing, what we have to know. So enabling project, we did a large amount of work with a great team of partners, help and data provided there. So we actually mapped the availability of resources. So one should know what feedstock is available. Is it in surplus? If not, what is it being currently used for, and how can I make better use of it? And that includes sustainability, local employment, and so on. And what is the potential of feedstock? So what's both theoretical and practical potential of the feedstock? And in order to get to the maximum, what technology should I use is the next question. So you should be able to match your technology with the feedstock. I mean, one person doesn't have to do everything, but that's what it is. It is all about collaboration. All the companies, research institutes, and universities coming together to make this journey happen. So one should match feedstock with technology. So suppose for cellulose, it's one kind of process. For starch, it's a different kind of process, but both of them give lactic acid. So one shouldn't get confused with it, and work in team and collaboration to get most out of your biomass and to make a local impact. And obviously, once you select a technology, we have to optimize the process, and we have to do process simulations and equipment sizing, economics. It's a lot of technical work, but it goes in a circle till you reach the target product, and then pilot and demonstration. That's a very normal way of developing bio-based products from biomass. But when,
Lalitha, we need to finish the presentation in about a minute or two's time to allow 5 minutes for some questions.
That's good. I just have one or two more slides. One, I think. Yeah. So process design rules for small scale rural biorefineries are different from large scale. Equipment investment costs should be well planned, proper heat exchange and heat recovery, right combination of pre-processing, and where it needs centralized processing should be allowed. That means it can be pre-processed and then it can go for centralized processing. And on-site residues should be used. And one should know one should provide automation to avoid, large labor costs, and also modular transportable units if it has to be, if it can go to different locations. So my last slide, investing in these bioeconomy sectors can create up to 1.6 million jobs. That's what Forbes says. I mean, Sean Cumbers from Forbes says, and I think it's fantastic. We have to take this opportunity to do. And Celignis is involved in a variety of bioeconomy projects, and as I spoke about process optimization and technologies, we are involved in it, and the goal is to develop a sustainable, cost-efficient technology that can be applied to build rural economy. Thank you.
And thank you. I'd now like to bring in Iris, who runs the BioLadies Network, just to reflect on what we've heard. And there's one issue that came out that I think it would be useful to reflect on, and that's the word local and the local economy, because everybody has raised that, and a thought that what COVID has done is it has put more of a focus on local supply chains. Iris.
Oh, right. Hello, everybody. Yes, my background, just in case people know me as Iris Anderson, is in the British Civil Service. And so I dealt with a lot of strategies and what we should be doing and why we should be doing it. I loved all the talks. Obviously, Josie was speaking about really leadership when you have a company, and without having good leadership, companies will flounder if it's all just about making the product and not knowing who your people, who your workers are, where you're having the personal relationship with where you're getting your initial product to make your output, whatever it is you're doing, it doesn't matter. And then Emma was talking in very animated terms about how she is personally involved with making the technology work. And there's a lot of people like Emma out there with new technologies. This is just one. And the bioeconomy's got lots of different technologies. And then Lalita was putting that into context of global. And all I can say is that local is really, really important. But local is important because you're using the processes and the innovations in a local way, but the processes are not local, they're global. So people that invest money in an innovation, it doesn't matter, as Lalita said, whether you're, so for example, I'll give you an example. If you have a fiber, you have hemp or wool or pineapple leaves, where we're making new textiles from. These are grown in different parts of the world, but the process can be applied anywhere in the world, but you really should keep the resource local. At our recent BioLadies meeting, Alex Sparrow was talking about hemp and constructing buildings with it in the UK, but in the discussion afterwards, our member in Vietnam was talking about what local resources are there in Vietnam and how can she use the techniques that he uses in hemp in the UK and France to do it in Vietnam. That way, it's more sustainable because you're using something local, but at the same time, you're learning from your colleagues all over the world about what's worked and what hasn't, so you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. That's sort of my reflection. The only other thing I wanted to say was that the EU, I know the UK is leaving the EU, but the EU is working a lot on the bioeconomy, and the biodiversity strategy has things like reducing the use and risk of pesticides by 50%. They're going to be talking about with the UN Global Biodiversity Framework on construction, agriculture, and food and drink. So there will be money put into research and put into new ways of dealing with keeping biodiversity. And the only other thing I want to say is that the bioeconomy is the truly circular economy. Some people keep talking about the circular economy and just talking about waste, not bio-waste, waste, fossil fuel waste, plastic waste. The true circular economy isn't recycling fossil fuel plastic. It's truly a circular economy and aiming towards having a bioeconomy, and it's always been circular.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I know, Josie, I think you raised a little bit about the recycling issues as well. Could you just sort of expand on that a little bit in terms of that recycling as opposed to just being bio-based in the first place?
Yeah, so I mean, the complexities of recycling, I think everyone's probably aware of, and the lack of, I guess, joined up thinking in the recycling chains. So that's obviously a massive challenge. I think for us, because we're using such a reusable material, and what's been highlighted is obviously there's quite a lot of it going out. So, you know, obviously in the last 3 months, we've had quite a lot of inquiries coming back to us around what do we do with the wool that we've received. And so I think we're just very conscious in terms of what can we do either to get it back. So we've got a scheme where people can send the wool back to us to be made into new wool cools. Obviously it gets washed again to make sure it's nice and clean. But ultimately, what do they do at the end of it? And I think that's a challenge, whatever material you get. And I think, you know, Iris touched upon kind of biomaterials being the king when it comes to actual waste. And that's where, say, the wool, for example, because it's 100% pure wool, if you dig it into the ground, it will break down. That's the nature of a truly natural material. And I think some of the challenges with the plastics, and particularly also some of the bioplastics, there's some great ones too, so it's in criticism of them, but I think there's not really any joined up thinking with any materials that are a bit of a anomaly when it comes to recycling. So some of the industrial compostable plastics, well, if they don't go to industrial composting facilities, what happens to them? And I think that they're the challenges. When you're sending out packaging, that's the biggest challenge really, is what do you do with that when it gets to the customer? And it has its benefits as well. You know, the having shipments online saves packaging in other areas. Yeah, that's probably the challenge it's a 2-hour conversation maybe.
Yeah, indeed.
Add what Emma and Lalita were saying about processing and you know, looking at the process. So for example, there's a lot of products at the moment that produce a co-product or a waste, and investigating those to extract other products, for example, to make sure that when you look at the life cycle of your product, you've optimized every single part of the value chain. So you might be making something now, but when you actually investigate what else you've got, you might be making another product locally, like adhesives or dyes. I mean, I have a lot of ladies working in the textile industry and in the printing industry, you know, lots of things that you can extract. Some people that are looking at materials from, you know, like biomimicry, are looking at things like glues that you can use so that everything then becomes biocompostable. And then you have packaging, say, that would be made from a biomaterial, that the ink, that the glue, everything that you're using is bio. And
yeah,
of course, it's all very complicated at the moment, but this is the way we should be, that's the angle we should be looking at, so that eventually everything will be bio and everything will be circular. This is utopia a few years down the line.
And it needs lots of money. But I think what was quite revealing with what Lalitha said about the amount of money that we've used for COVID is it's 3 times the output of the food and drink sector for the EU each year. So it's an enormous amount of money that we've used. If only a fraction of that went to support the work that we're doing, we would drive change very, very fast. There's just a couple of questions that have come up that I don't know whether Emma or Lalitha could deal with. Emma, I think you referred to some results that you were surprised at that Lalitha's team had been involved in, and there's also a very specific question to Emma as to whether you're using an ultrasonic generator for part of your work.
Okay, so for the surprise results, that was validated in Italy by a completely different trial.
Okay.
What Lalitha does is every time that we have a result, she doesn't just tell us what the data is, or their team doesn't just tell us what the data is, they tell us what the data means, and also what it means as a commercial application going on further. And also further, as Iris was talking about, biocascading of further materials that can come out of that waste stream. So it's never just a one isolated data point that we're given, is a whole entire story. This is why Celignis rock.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Yeah.
Such a strong partnership, because it's all about proof of what it is that you're doing and understanding as well. And the bioeconomy is not, it's constantly moving, it's not a static thing. So there's, what Iris was talking about is that there's lots of different parts of the story. We are at a unique point in time where we've actually reached a maturation of a variety of technologies, a variety of techniques across multiple aspects of the bioeconomy and bio-community. So we've all got to a certain technology readiness level. We're starting to cohere and make our own networks together. It's already happening organically, shall we say. And the circular bioeconomy is coming together. So by strengthening that network and by an injection of capital to create these biorefineries that we know work, we've already the anecdotal and the empirical piloting evidence. Now it's time for a rollout. This is time to all come together and do a mass rollout of what we've got. And this is all about what Josie was also talking about as well, is the cradle to circular economy, is understanding that you need to have, not just about a circular economy, it's not just one trick, it's about cascading, it's about chain feedstocks, and it's about joining up all of those different processes.
Yeah.
And corporate social responsibility. This is what Josie was talking a lot about. Yeah. The circular bioeconomy brings this into the fore.
Okay.
So,
yeah. I'm afraid we're going to probably have to leave it there, because we are now well over time. I would just like to thank all the presenters.
Acoustic cavitation, it's hydrodynamic cavitation. This is very, very important. Acoustic cannot be scaled up, although it's very, very good. Hydrodynamic cavitation can be scaled up to industrial levels to achieve these savings for the bioeconomy. This is very, very important that we have low carbon processing technology, so we can go head to head with fossil. Okay, sorry. improve.
Thank you. I think that's a very good point to finish on, and especially the point that this is about networks. It's about getting lots and lots of people to work together, and to really take a joined up and really a whole systems approach. The video from this will be available on the YouTube channel that the project runs, and we'll make sure that we share the link on that with everybody who registered for today. But I'd just like to thank again all of our speakers for their input, and I hope it's been worthwhile. Thank you very much. Goodbye.